I worked in the hotel's restaurant, and I had been working there for approximately 3 weeks. I still had butterflies. My 20-year-old self could not believe I had finally arrived. I started gathering my menus, wiping them down to make sure there were no spots. They looked nice. I arranged them, and I held them tight. I checked my lipstick, and I walked up behind the podium, waiting for my customers to arrive. I could see them lined up in the hallway. They were waiting for lunch. This restaurant had a lunch crowd that was out of this world. And I started greeting my customers one by one as they walked in. I got my smile ready, and I started walking them to their respective tables. Soon after, my manager walks in. I'm with the customer, so I nod and I smile. She walks in, and she just kind of stares at me. I didn't think much of it. About 5 minutes later, she comes back, and she looks at me and she says, "Luana, could you come with me for a moment?" Sure. I said sure with confidence, even though in my head I thought, what could she possibly want? I know I'm doing a good job. I'm on time. Customers love me. I went down the list. So I followed her into her office. When we get into her office, she looks at me and she says, "Luana, what happened to your hair? What did you do to your hair?" Excuse me? What did you do to your hair? She said a little more clearly that time. And I said, I stopped to think, how do you want to answer this? Where's she going? And I said, I got braids over the weekend. And she looked at me and she said, but your hair was fine the way it was. I like your hair the way it was. And I said, okay, but I just wanted to get braids. And she's like, so when are you gonna change it back? And I looked at her and I said, well, I spent time and effort and money getting my hair done. I really hadn't thought about changing it back so soon. I just got it done this weekend. Okay, fine. And she waved her hand and dismissed me. That was my first time experiencing workplace bullying. I held my head down. I walked out of her office. And I walked behind my podium similar to this. And I just stood there, feeling bad, feeling a bit defeated, feeling just sad. And I thought to myself, what's wrong with my hair? I thought it looked nice. All of my customers thought it looked nice. But at the time, this was 30 years ago, there was no Governor Shapiro passing the Crown Act in Pennsylvania. And if you're not familiar with the Crown Act is legislation to prevent discrimination based upon hairstyle, hair texture, usually styles that are considered to be more ethnic. Cornrows, braids, twists, locks, all of those styles at one point in our history were taboo in the workplace. In order to be respected as a professional, Black women and other women of color with textured hair had to have hair extensions, hair weaves, or wear wigs, or some type of straightener, pressing comb, or flat iron to manipulate your hair into another texture. And I was aware of this. However, I didn't think that pertained to me at the time because I was doing such a good job. I didn't think that this